Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're doing a bit of an investigation. We're going to take a hard look at modern AI infrastructure and expose its hidden architecture. And get this, we're doing it using an 80-year-old legal lie detector. We'll be asking some tough questions about who really controls the tools we use every single day. I know it sounds totally wild, but we are literally connecting a 1940s Florida citrus grove scam all the way to the impending 2026 enclosure of cloud AI. You know, history has a funny way of repeating itself, and tracing this path is going to show us exactly how centralized powers try to disguise what they are actually selling you. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the citrus grove disguise and the Howey test, then move on to the AI cloud illusion, unmasking agentic kings, the interface inversion, and finally, how we go about reclaiming digital sovereignty. Let's just dive right in. Section 1. The citrus grove disguise. So we start back in Florida with a guy named William John Howey. He owned these massive tracts of citrus groves and came up with a pretty clever scheme. He sold narrow, fractional little strips of these groves to northern tourists. But here's the kicker. He bundled those land sales with mandatory service contracts, so his company would do all the actual cultivating, harvesting, and marketing. They slapped a real estate contract label on the whole thing, hoping the federal government wouldn't notice they were actually selling an ongoing business operation. It was a complete legal disguise to dodge federal securities regulations. All right, Section 2, the Howey test explained. So the SEC eventually steps in, and the case goes all the way up to the Supreme Court. And honestly, the Supreme Court was not fooled by the marketing at all. In 1946, Justice Frank Murphy delivered this landmarked quote, defining an investment contract as a scheme where a person invests their money in a common enterprise and is led to expect profits solely from the efforts of a third party. In plain English, if you're just throwing money at something and someone else is doing all the actual heavy lifting, it's a regulated security. This essentially became the ultimate economic lie detector. And that ruling gave us the famous four-prong Howey test. 1, an investment of money. 2, a common enterprise. 3, an expectation of profits. And 4, derived from the efforts of others. This is an objective framework that completely ignores whatever fancy corporate label a transaction has to relentlessly expose its underlying substance. It's been used for 80 years to regulate everything from chinchilla breeding to digital assets. Which brings us to Section 3, the AI cloud illusion. Now, what happens if we take that exact same legal lens, that Howey lie detector, and point it straight at today's massive centralized tech platforms? The contrast is absolutely stark. On the surface, the corporate label is selling you this magical, open AI cloud full of infinite convenience. But when you strip away that slick marketing, the actual economic substance is an enclosed, metered utility. It's basically a royalist tax on human thought. The research frames this as a situation where you are actively being pushed into a state of digital tenancy. Moving on to Section 4, unmasking agentic kings. This massive shift away from local computing is turning all of us into digital tenants. You don't actually own the hardware anymore. You're just renting the right to process your own thoughts on a monthly subscription. The sources describe this AI landscape as a royalist counter-revolution. We are literally seeing the rise of agentic kingship. These tech monopolies are acting like invisible monarchs. They're hoarding all the computational power behind these walled corporate gardens, reducing users to mere passive subjects who have to pay a toll just to execute a basic digital task. Let's look at exactly how they do this in Section 5, the interface inversion. To maintain this kingship and keep extracting value from you, these centralized platforms rely on a really sneaky, highly effective structural shift called interface inversion. In a normal, healthy setup, you use a tool to do a job. But with interface inversion, it's completely flipped. You aren't managing the machine anymore. The centralized platform intercepts your intent, dictates the terms, and effectively manages you. It's a quiet takeover happening right beneath our fingertips. This whole cloud enclosure completely strips away your sovereignty. It intercepts and modifies your human intent. It meters out probabilistic intelligence. And it relies on what the researchers actually call calculator gunk, meaning the system isn't using exact mathematical truths. It's using opaque, hidden statistical tables to basically just guess what sounds right. You are locked out of the engine room, entirely separated from the underlying physical hardware, just trusting this black box algorithm to do the thinking for you. Finally, Section 6, reclaiming digital sovereignty. Faced with this creeping royalist counter-revolution, we have to figure out how to escape the cloud enclosure, right? How do we break free from these agentic kings? We need a complete paradigm shift. Right now, we are stuck in royalist compute. the centralized cloud, acting as a king, handing out a metered utility rental. But the symmetric resolution to that is sovereign compute. This means running artificial life locally on your own hardware chassis. You become the sovereign agent, producing an inalienable record. It's literally the exact difference between renting a tiny apartment and holding the physical deed to your own house. So how do we actually pull that off? Well, first, you secure a local physical hardware substrate, meaning you actually own the machine sitting on your desk. Second, you publish your unalterable intent via structured text, like a command line interface. Third, you execute those commands locally using exact, deterministic math, totally bypassing that probabilistic cloud guessing. And fourth, you generate a cryptographic record of sweat, an undeniable mathematical proof of your actual effort. By doing all this, you completely bypass the foggy cloud API and take command directly. As these massive cloud platforms try to finalize their grip on our digital infrastructure, I want to leave you with this provocative thought to chew on. Will you remain a digital tenant, quietly renting your capabilities from an invisible agentic king? Or will you secure your own hardware, reject the illusion, and ride as the sovereign pilot of your own machine? The future of your digital freedom is entirely up to you. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep questioning the architecture around you.